As Nigerian political parties
geared up for the 2027 general election, there has been a change in the atmosphere. Of course, we have seen where coalition is taking the center stage. But with the recent plans for coalition, will it replicate what happened 2014 that ousted former President Goodluck Jonathan from power and brought in former President Muhammadu Buhari into power? These are questions that are also begging for answers. But with the crop of these members that make up these coalitions from different political parties, somebody might say there could be a light at the end of the tunnel, depending on how the game is being played. Hello, dear. Thank you so very much for joining us on Political Affairs on Kama TV. My name is Chris Jacobs. I've been joined by Sunday Wujira. He's a lawyer based here in the city of Yola. And of course, he doubles as the Senior Special Assistant to the Governor of Adamawa State on Public Affairs. He joins me now to further this conversation. Barrister, it's a pleasure to have you on Political Affairs.
Pleasure is mine.
That's great. Good afternoon. Now, talk to me of what you make about the recent political, development in the country vis-a-vis the for and against certain decisions that have been taken or that has come to play.
Well, politics, as always, is an interesting game. It is an ongoing game also. It is always evolving. Political alignments, realignments, and whatnot. Unfortunately, you find out that in Nigeria, political alignments mostly is born out of disappointment or mischief, not necessarily out of conviction, not necessarily out of the desire to serve, not necessarily out of the desire to rescue. If you look at the caliber of people that are aligning or realigning for whatever reason, you find out that they are almost the same set of people that undid themselves in politics, or they were used for mischievous purposes in the past and probably dumped or in furtherance of further mischief in the polity. There are lots of issues. All I will tell Nigeria and Nigerians is we must be careful. We must watch it. Just like Jesus Christ said in the end times, a lot of people will come out professing Christ, performing miracles, raising the dead, healing the sick. He said, you must be careful. Most of them are not from me. So, I will still tell Nigerians that Nigerians, we must be careful. Not all of these people struggling for realignment and coalition are actually Democrats. Some of them are demagogues masquerading as statesmen.
Well, but is it almost saying that there is no permanent friend but permanent interest or personal interest? Nigerian politicians, of course, are known for exhibiting their interests. So we have seen, apart from even the coalition, that seemed to come to stay, we've also seen where politicians in their individual levels and prowess, so they have you jump ship, defected from one party to the other. If they lose election, party A, to find their way in party B, just to secure a ticket and then vie for a particular elective offices. But do we generalize the whole attitudinal disposition and make them the same? Do we throw the bath water with the baby?
No, actually, we don't throw the bath water with the baby, but at times the baby and the bath water may be of no use. So, as much as you throw the bathwater in the open. You bury the baby that is lifeless, for obvious reasons. So in this instance, I am not talking about friendship. No, it is true that we don't have a permanent friend in politics. What we have is permanent interest. But what about the character of the individual, whether as a friend or a foe? You know, what about his character? What about his antecedents? What about his usual stock in trade? Over time, what has he exhibited?
It's like you mention of you're emphasizing and being more emphatic on character. What's the difference between the coalition that we saw 2014 that ousted former President Goodluck Jonathan from power and establishing a platform for former President Muhammadu Buhari? What's the difference with that group that formed the coalition and this very one they're trying to form a coalition?
When you look at the difference, what has the coalition that has ousted Goodluck Jonathan brought to Nigerians better than what was obtained under Goodluck Jonathan? And what has changed now that we need another coalition different from what we're having now?
So shouldn't Nigerians trust coalition again?
No, it is not about coalition.
Okay.
It is about the characters behind the coalition. You know, the coalition does not move itself. People move the coalition. Who are these people? What do they stand for?
Yeah, for instance, the likes of Senator Aminu Tambuwal, the likes of former Deputy Speaker, of course, Ihe Dioha, the likes of former Governor Nasir El-Rufai, the likes of Peter Obi, and so on. And of course, these are very strong characters when it comes to political atmosphere, and their contribution in the political sphere has been very remarkable and memorable, as a matter of fact.
Well, to the glory of God, I have stayed on the political turf for a very long time. From my childhood, I can say. I know a lot about politics that sometimes people find it very difficult to believe. What I am telling you is we just have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we may think that a rosy picture may be pointed or may be painted for us to believe and get carried away. Well, in the actual sense of it, it is not what we bargained for. In 2013, 2014, when Nigerians were injected with the hope that something greater or better was coming, people were so ecstatic. Eventually, what happened? A lot of us were disappointed. Our hopes turned to ashes in our mouths, and we are still battling with the challenges, and we are sinking deeper. Yes, we need a change, but what type of change?
We need a change, but what type of change? And I hope we find answers to this question of yours.
We have answers to these questions, only that we are not ready to follow the way or the road that will lead us to that change. We need selfless people, we need courageous people, we need people with focus, we need people that are prepared spiritually, physically, politically.
But are you invariably saying that the permutations we see is on the wrong premise?
Well, I am finding it very difficult to believe that with the characters in this new coalition, it will lead us to freedom.
Okay.
I hope I am wrong, but I am not hopeful. This is my personal opinion.
Okay. It's all right. Well, I would still like you to ponder on this so that when we return from this short time, I will look at the declaration of emergency rule on Rivers State and whether or not it is enshrined in our constitution, talking about the step President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has taken in recent time that has gotten Nigerians talking. Even as we speak, it is still on the front burner of national discourse. All right. You're watching Political Affairs on Camera TV. We'll take a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Join us again. Alright, glad to know you're still there. If I've just tuned in, you're watching Political Affairs on Kama TV. I've been speaking with Sunday Wigura. He's a legal practitioner based in Yola, and of course, he's been furthering the conversation on the declaration of emergency rule and political development in Nigeria, looking at the permutation as against 2027 general election. Alright, before the break, with what has been on the front burner of national discourse today is the declaration of the emergency rule on Rivers State by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that has indeed attracted a backlash from stakeholders, from politicians, from technocrats, and as a matter of fact, even international communities. What does the Constitution say about, declaring an emergency rule on a state? And of course, the step that President Tinubu has taken to do that. How will you describe the decision by the president in its own entirety?
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, has provided for the process of a declaration of state of emergency. And this is enshrined under Section 305 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
From subsection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of section 305, there is nowhere that is provided that in the event of a suspension in any part of Nigeria, in any state in Nigeria, or the Federation of Nigeria as a whole, democratic institutions, elected officials would equally be suspended. There is no such provision. So for the president to go the whole hog and suspend an elected governor, an elected deputy governor, elected state legislature, that is an abnormality. In fact, that is treasonable because it goes against the letters and spirit of Section 1 of the Constitution.
But another argument here that that's making rounds is that in 2004, as a matter of fact, former President Olusegun Obasanjo suspended the former governor of Plateau State, Joshua Dare, as well. Ayo Fayose, was also suspended. But is there a nexus between
even
these
the
two?
suspension that Obasanjo did in respect of Plateau and Ekiti, that was wrong, unconstitutional, and void. It was unlawful.
Which he later admitted, as a matter of fact.
The court, the Supreme Court, decided that it was antithetical to the letters and spirit of the Constitution for someone to declare a state of emergency and also suspend democratic institutions or democratic governance, people that are elected by the people of the Federation of Nigeria in a particular area. Assuming but not considering there is a state of war today in Nigeria necessitating a declaration of a state of emergency, is Tinubu going to suspend himself and appoint a military administrator over Nigeria?
Well, as a matter of fact, since one cannot be a judge in his own
You
case,
see,
then
the issue is we are being selfish, we are being confused, and sometimes we are being naive or utterly stupid.
But isn't the Supreme Court having all the prerogative or local standing to have corrected this anomaly? Haven't had the president making a frantic effort to, declare state of emergency.
The court does not embark on ambulance chasing. It doesn't. Somebody must approach the court. Somebody must approach the court. That is the issue.
But if nobody approaches the court, we have an arm of government, talking about the legislative arm of government, and it is expected of the legislature to checkmate what seem to be excesses.
In this era, even the legislature, the National Assembly, they succeeded in making a caricature of themselves.
How do you mean?
When President Tinubu transmitted his declaration order and seeking for ratification of same by the National Assembly, the letter and spirit of the Constitution is to the effect that it must be ratified by and supported by 2/3 majority of the legislature. And the leadership of the houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they refused to embark or conduct a head count vote to ensure that truly this number voted in favor of the declaration and this number voted against. And does this number meet the requirement of 2/3 majority that is constitutionally required? They subjected the House to a voice vote. And what does that connote? They succeeded in making a caricature of themselves. As far as I am concerned, we have a rubber stamp legislature, and it's most unfortunate. And that doesn't portend a goodwill, as far as our democracy is concerned.
But do you think democracy is truncated by this singular act of Mr. President?
Democracy is under attack by this singular act.
A few days ago, former President Goodluck Jonathan actually condemned the decision taken by President Bola Tinubu declaring state of emergency. But some persons also from another quarters will say Goodluck Jonathan also declared, state of emergency on Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa state. But if you look at it critically, you realize that there was a reason for that. Is two different scenarios. Borno, Adamawa, Yobe were under siege by Boko Haram, and it wasn't really like a political tussle by two politicians. But we have seen in Rivers State, of course, we know that Minister for the FCT, Nyesom Wike, as well as the suspended Governor Fubara, fell apart. And it seems the empire, one's empire has fallen apart. And that indeed has generated what we have seen culminating to what Rivers State is experiencing now.
That declaration was in bad taste. It wasn't in the interest of Nigeria, Nigerians, or the people of Rivers State. It was in the interest of political interest of Bola Tinubu.
But what does the president stand to gain? What does he stand to gain?
You see, we may not see the immediate gain that will accrue to him, but at least we have seen certain steps that is being taken, where the Supreme Court decided that an elected government cannot dispense appropriated funds to certain agencies of government simply because it has not passed through the legislature that is actually the legislature in the state. Now, we have heard that about 400 billion naira belonging to the River State government would be given the sole administrator.
Mhm.
What does that portend to you? Is he more elected than the democratic structures that were suspended?
And pretty soon, Rivers State will be going for local government elections.
Does he even have the power to conduct the election? You see, we are treading on dangerous grounds. And we have to be very careful. Evil could come out of the desire to do good. Let us all ponder a little and reflect, introspect, and ask, is this what we need at this material time? And no Nigerian should have the pleasure of keeping quiet and remaining silent.
But some civil society organizations, just a few anyway, are supporting the decision taken by Mr. President.
Who are these civil society organizations? Who are they? People that are anything a penny? This, you see, we have to be very careful. Some people laid down their lives to ensure that democracy is sustained in Nigeria. And whether we like it or not, we must also make sacrifices, even if it means laying down our lives again.
All right, let me allow you to catch your breath, and we'll return for this final lap of the conversation. Just, catch your breath and ponder on more on this very talking point. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll be back in a moment. Join us again. So how many minutes do we have left now?
5.
Okay. You feel wound yourself for this thing. All right, you're welcome back, and you're watching Political Affairs on Kama TV. I've been talking with Sunday Wigira. He's a legal practitioner, and our focus has been current political development in the country, looking at the impasse between suspended Governor Fubara and the current Minister of the FCT vis-a-vis the declaration of emergency rule on Rivers State. Now, before the break, I'd like you to also further this, what do you make of the current crop of the lawmakers? I'm not looking at the big picture, talking about lawmakers at the national level. The suspended lawmakers of Rivers State, because it is said that even before they were suspended, Governor Fubara faltered because he cannot preside or present a budget to a group of persons that never form a quorum. So in its own side, Governor Fubara also seemed to have bitten a little bit more than he could chew.
Well, lawfully. Out of, there is these 27 members of this Rivers State House of Assembly that openly cross-carpeted to the All Progressives Congress.
And what does the law say about such persons?
PDP are no longer members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. But you see, I don't know how this happened. I don't know how they bungled the issue. Perhaps they did not do their homework very well. The provision of the law is very clear.
Who didn't do his or her homework very well?
Perhaps the PDP.
Okay.
Yes. The PDP failed to do its homework very well. This we must admit. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this misfortune on our hands. Because the declaration for cross-carpeting was done in the open. There is no Nigerian today that will not admit that yes, they did that in the open. They read their coruscating letter. It was in writing, and they read it out on the floor of the house. What else do we need? In Adamawa State here, the court declared when a member from Michika state constituency coruscated from PDP to APC when there was no crisis. And his seat was declared vacant. He went to the Federal High Court, insisting that the declaration of his seat as vacant was null and void. And the court declared, rightly so.
So still the PDP didn't play her cards well in the state level.
In Rivers State. So, or probably there was a compromise. Anything can happen. Otherwise, we wouldn't have ended up with this confusion that some people who cross-carpeted, whose seats were declared vacant, to wake up again and get something different, and the Supreme Court. You see, these are some of the things that we have to work on, and we have to be very careful. Passion, sentiments should never be associated with public office. Let us do our things the way they should be or they ought to be. Anything short of that, you go off the course and there will be consequences. Perhaps that's the consequences the Rivers State Democratic Institution is suffering or facing today, which is most unfortunate. I think the federal government, the state government in Rivers State, failed to do the right thing. And it is never too late. Because for me, anyone that will recognize any contraption in Rivers State today outside Fubara is a coupist that needed to be tried for that.
But isn't it instructive enough, that something fundamentally went wrong, and the People Democratic Party, of course, they have, expressed their displeasure over the decision taken by the president. But how far, so far, should they continue to push forth, to secure their mandate? As a matter of fact, it's the mandate of the people.
You see, the court is the appropriate place to go to. And in this instance, state governors who are directly threatened by this declaration, because I'm telling you, it's not going to stop on Rivers State alone.
If this is not checkmate, it could have an overflow to other states. In fact,
Kano is next. With this emirship tussle in Kano, Kano is next for declaration of state of emergency and suspension of democratic governance. Everybody must be on his toes. Governors must approach the Supreme Court for interpretation of Section 305 in its entirety as to whether it extends to suspension of democratic governance, democratic institutions, elected persons.
But it's already enshrined in the Constitution, Section 305, as you aforementioned. Is it that it is circumvented?
Yes, it is. There was an overreach. So, the governors of the Federation of Nigeria, whether of the APC, Labour, ABGA, or PDP, or NNPP, should come together as one. An injury to one is an injury to all.
And what is good for the goose is good for the gander.
We must also
well.
make sure that democracy is sustained, because somebody tomorrow could wake up and foment trouble across Nigeria and suspend democratic institution or governance in Nigeria using Section 305.
Because what we've seen is already a precedent that is set.
See, we have to be very careful. We think that this thing will stop at the states. No.
May we not wake up one day and say that, okay, somebody said the president should be replaced with a sole administrator.
Exactly. Or he will just declare himself as the sole administrator. Pending whatever.
Isn't that reasonable enough?
So the president, even if he has immunity, he should know that a treasonable charge awaits him after his first term or his second term.
All right, there is no better way to end this conversation than now. Barrister Sunday Wugira, thank you so very much for this expose. That's been very incisive and analytical talking with you this afternoon. Thank you most sincerely.
The pleasure is mine.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, that's how we drop the anchor of the show today. Thank you so very much for being with us from start to finish. Join us again, same time, same station. I will come with a fresh edition of the program. Until then, stay safe. My name is Chris Jacobs. God bless Nigeria.